Hi friends, welcome to Kerala EduStar. If you are watching the channel for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. Then share it with your friends and relatives. If you like the video, please like it. Today our video includes Kerala Syllabus Class 8 English First Units The Boy Who Drew Cats, Malayalam translations, and textual questions and answers, textual activities of the lesson. Let's go to the video. The Boy Who Drew Cats. About the author. Hasegawa Takejiro, 1853 to 1938, was an innovative Japanese publisher specializing in books in European languages on Japanese subjects. He employed leading foreign residents as translators and noted Japanese artists as illustrators, and became a leading purveyor of export books and publications for foreign residents in Japan. The Boy Who Drew Cats. Hope you enjoyed the story. The mysterious picture. You came across TYL, the painter in the story. In this story you will see a boy who is a painter, who knows to draw only cats. It's a Japanese folk tale. Read it and enjoy. A long time ago, in a small country village in Japan, there lived a poor farmer and his wife, who were very good people. They had a number of children, and found it very hard to feed them all. The elder son was strong enough when only 14 years old to help his father, and the little girls learned to help their mother almost as soon as they could walk. But the youngest child, a little boy, did not seem to be fit for hard work. He was very clever, cleverer than all his brothers and sisters, but he was quite weak and small, and people said he could never grow very big. So his parents thought it would be better for him to become a priest than to become a farmer. They took him with them to the village temple one day, and asked the good old priest who lived there if he would have their little boy for his acolyte, and teach him all that a priest ought to know. The old man spoke kindly to the lad, and asked him some hard questions. So clever were the answers that the priest agreed to take the little fellow into the temple as an acolyte, and to educate him for the priesthood. The boy learned quickly what the old priest taught him, and was very obedient in most things. But he had one fault. He liked to draw cats during study hours, and to draw cats even where cats ought not to have been drawn at all. Whenever he found himself alone, he drew cats. He drew them on the margins of the priest's books, and on all the screens of the temple, and on the walls, and on the pillars. Several times the priest told him this was not right, but he did not stop drawing cats. He drew them because he could not really help it. He had what is called the genius of an artist, and just for that reason he was not quite fit to be an acolyte. A good acolyte should study books. One day, after he had drawn some very clever pictures of cats upon a paper screen, the old priest said to him severely, "My boy, you must go away from this temple at once. You will never make a good priest, but perhaps you will become a great artist. Now, let me give you a last piece of advice, and be sure you never forget it. Avoid large places at night. Keep to small." The boy did not know what the priest meant by saying, "Avoid large places, keep to small." He thought and thought, while he was tying up his little bundle of clothes to go away, but he could not understand those words, and he was afraid to speak to the priest anymore, except to say goodbye. He left the temple very sorrowfully, and began to wonder what he should do. If he went straight home, he felt sure his father would punish him for having been disobedient to the priest. So he was afraid to go home. All at once he remembered that at the next village, 12 miles away, there was a very big temple. He had heard there were several priests at that temple, and he made up his mind to go to them, and ask them to take him for their acolyte. Now that big temple was closed up, but the boy did not know this fact. The reason it had been closed up was that a goblin had frightened the priests away, and had taken possession of the place. Some brave warriors had afterward gone to the temple at night to kill the goblin, but they had never been seen alive again. Nobody had ever told these things to the boy, so he walked all the way to the village hoping to be kindly treated by the priests. When he got to the village, it was already dark, and all the people were in bed. But he saw the big temple on a hill at the other end of the principal street, and he saw there was a light in the temple. People who tell the story say the goblin used to make that light in order to tempt lonely travelers to ask for shelter. The boy went at once to the temple and knocked. There was no sound inside. He knocked and knocked again, but still nobody came. At last he pushed gently at the door and was quite glad to find that it had not been fastened. So he went in and saw a lamp burning, but no priest. He thought some priest would be sure to come very soon, and he sat down and waited. Then he noticed that everything in the temple was grey with dust and thickly spun over with cobwebs. So he thought to himself that the priests would certainly like to have an acolyte to keep the place clean. He wondered why they had allowed everything to get so dusty. What most pleased him, however, were some big white screens, good to paint cats upon. Though he was tired, he looked at once for a writing box, and found one, and ground some ink, and began to paint cats. He painted a great many cats upon the screens, and then he began to feel very sleepy. He was just on the point of lying down to sleep beside one of the screens, when he suddenly remembered the words, "Avoid large places, keep to small." The temple was very large. He was all alone, and as he thought of these words, though he could not quite understand them, he began to feel for the first time a little afraid, and he resolved to look for a small place in which to sleep. He found a little cabinet with a sliding door, and went into it, and shut himself up. Then he lay down and fell fast asleep. Very late in the night, he was awakened by a most terrible noise, a noise of fighting and screaming. It was so dreadful that he was afraid even to look through a chink of the little cabinet. He lay very still, holding his breath for fright. The light that had been in the temple went out, but the awful sounds continued, and became more awful, and all the temple shook. After a long time silence came, but the boy was still afraid to move. He did not move until the light of the morning sun shone into the cabinet through the chinks of the little door. Then he got out of his hiding place very cautiously, and looked about. The first thing he saw was that all the floor of the temple was covered with blood. And then he saw, lying dead in the middle of it, an enormous, monstrous rat. A goblin rat, bigger than a cow. But who or what could have killed it? There was no man or other creature to be seen. Suddenly the boy observed that the mouths of all the cats he had drawn the night before were red and wet with blood. Then he knew that the goblin had been killed by the cats which he had drawn. And then also, for the first time, he understood why the wise old priest had said to him, "Avoid large places at night, keep to small." Afterward that boy became a very famous artist. Some of the cats which he drew are still shown to travelers in Japan. The boy who drew cats, a farmer, had many children, who were all well built except the youngest boy. The parents decided to make him a priest. He was taken to a priest as an apprentice. But he had a problem. Whenever he was alone, he drew pictures of cats. At last the priest sent him away. He was advised by the priest to avoid large places at night and keep to small places. The boy went to a temple in a next village. But a goblin rat had frightened the priests away and had taken possession of the temple. There was a lamp burning inside, but no priest was seen. He saw a white screen there and painted many cats on it. When he was tired, he slept in a little box. Late at night, he could hear the sound of the fighting and screaming of the goblin rat with the pictures of cats. But he lay still, holding his breath. In the morning he found that the floor was covered with blood. He saw a monstrous rat, bigger than a cow, laying dead. It was killed in the fight with the cats that he had drawn. Then he understood why the old priest had told him to avoid large places at night. Later the boy becomes a famous artist. One. How is the youngest child introduced in the story? The youngest boy is introduced as a clever, but quite weak and a small boy who is not fit for hard work. 2. Why did the parents take the boy to the priest? People of the village opined that the boy could never grow very big. So his parents thought it would be better for him to become a priest than to become a farmer. 3. But perhaps you will become a great artist. Do you think the opinion of the priest about the boy is appropriate? Why? Yes. Because whenever the boy was alone, he drew the pictures of cats. 4. What was the advice of the priest to the boy? The priest advised the boy to avoid large places at night and to keep to the small. 5. Why didn't the boy go home after he left the temple? The boy did not go home because he felt sure that his father would punish him for being disobedient to the priest. 6. When the boy entered the temple, he did not see anyone. What could be the reason? The reason was that a goblin rat had frightened the priests away and had taken possession of the place. 7. Why did he choose a small place to sleep? The boy felt afraid of the place and he resolved to look for a small place to sleep. 8. Where did the boy find a safe place to sleep on? He found a little cabinet with a sliding door and got into it and shut himself up. 9. What was the dreadful voice that the boy heard? The dreadful voice might have been the result of the fighting and screaming between the cats and the goblin rat. 10. How do you think the goblin rat was killed? The goblin rat was killed by the cats which the boy had drawn. 11. Was the advice of the priest helpful to the boy? Why? Yes. Because a dreadful fight was going on between the cats and the goblin rat and the boy was safe in the cabinet. Activity 1. Did you enjoy the story? The boy who drew cats. If you were the young boy, how would you tell the story? I was the youngest child of a poor Japanese family. I had brothers and sisters. Because of my ill health, I was small and weak. I was sent to a priest home to be trained as a priest. I liked to draw the pictures of cats, but the priest didn't allow me to draw all the time. My teacher ordered me not to draw cats anymore, but I could not stop drawing. At last my teacher advised me to become an artist, not a priest. Teacher sent me to my home. Before leaving, the teacher advised me to take shelter in small places and asked me to avoid big places. I was afraid to go back to home because I was sure that my father would punish me. I started my journey to the next village. I found a temple. I entered in and saw walls which were empty. I started drew the pictures of cats. When I felt sleepy, I slept in a small place. A noise of frightening and screaming awakened me. When it was morning, I came out and saw a big rat killed. Because of the pictures of the cats, the big rat was killed. Nobody was there except me. After that incident, I became a famous painter in Japan. Activity 2. How was the goblin rat killed? Write the events that led to the death of the goblin rat to complete the flowchart given below. A goblin rat frightened the priests away and took possession of the temple. The boy entered the temple and painted a great many cats upon the screen. The boy found a little cabinet and went into it and fell fast asleep. He was awakened by a terrible noise. A noise of fighting and screaming. The boy saw an enormous and monstrous rat, a goblin rat bigger than a cow, laying dead on the floor. If you understand this chapter, thanks for watching the video. Thank you.